What's up, and welcome to Clarity for Parents of Athletes, bringing you stories from professional athletes about their parents and how they were raised. My name is Gabe Nosair from aclearmind.com. Most people in the baby boomer and Gen X generations remember Doug Flutie as a gunslinging quarterback with incredible improvisation skills and a pro player who gave his fans belief that there's a recipe for success available to those who don't meet the typical physical mold of a professional football player. That recipe helped Doug win not only the vaunted Heisman Trophy for the best player in college football in 1984, but also other awards like the Maxwell and Walter Camp Awards, also for the best player in college football, and also the Davey O'Brien Award for the best college football quarterback, and numerous others. His most famous play was simply called The Pass, a last-second touchdown throw in a game against defending national champion Miami, one of the most famous plays ever in college football. Not only did he do that, but Doug also had a 20-year professional football career playing with teams including the New Jersey Generals of the USFL, the British Columbia Lions, Calgary Stampeders, and Toronto Argonauts of the Canadian Football League, and also Chicago Bears, New England Patriots, Buffalo Bills, and San Diego Chargers of the NFL. So what exactly was that recipe that helped Doug, who stands at 5'9" 3/4", play so long as a professional football player? And what was the role of his parents in all this, and how does he think parents today should maneuver within their relationship with their children in athletics? And what was his relationship like with his two children when they were younger? Let's find out and dig in and go deep with Doug Flutie. All right, so Doug, first of all, thanks for being here. I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to say about your history in sports. And, I think most people are obviously going to know you from, your past and your Heisman and your, long football career. But I, for one, and I think for others as well, would love to hear about your career before that when you were a youth. So tell me about, take me through your journey in sports. Let's go back into the Wayback Machine.
Yeah, I think it started out that I had an older brother, Bill. I have a younger brother, Darren, that's 4 years younger. But my older brother, Bill, was farm league age and came home with a registration form to play Little League Baseball, Farm League Baseball. And that started it. Once he got involved, my parents got involved. And my dad wanted to coach and be a part of it. My mom would go down and run the concession stand. We lived at the ball fields. And I always grew up around my older brother, Bill. So I was playing with his friends that were a little bigger, a little stronger, a year older. So I was always the little guy trying to keep up with them and measuring myself against them. I went my first year of Farm League Baseball. I remember registering a year early. I really wasn't of age yet. And I was one of those kids that had the bat on his shoulder, hoped for a walk. They stuck me in the outfield, all that. I guess defensively I was fine, but I was the little kid. And I went from that year to the next year at 8 years old, being the guy that was pitching, hitting home runs and running the bases and doing everything. And a lot of it all had to do with my dad being involved, always coaching. He was the parent that left work early to pick up kids, to make sure we all got to the ball field in time, coach the team. My mom got down there early. She'd have to run across town to pick up the candy to sell at the concession stand and open everything up. And, we were the first ones at the field and we were the last ones to leave. And that was just, that was our life. And we looked forward to it. So I grew up around it. We were always outside, living in Florida at the time. And, I had a buddy that lived about 3 houses up, and he and I, his name was Mark McLean. He and I were the best athletes in the town by the time we were 11 or 12 years old. And we did everything together and played on the same teams together, whether it was Little League Baseball, recreation basketball, you name it. And in all those leagues, whether it was the Pop Warner football, the recreation basketball, my parents were the ones that helped run everything. Saturdays at the gym for basketball would start early. The first games would be like 8 a.m. My parents would be at the gym at 6:30 to open the gym and all that. So we were always there early, shooting around and playing. And then at the end of the day, they were closing the gym. So we were there, 10 to 12 hours every Saturday.
Wow.
So it was your life, basically.
It was. I mean, dinner was a hot dog at the ball field because it was free, because my mom ran the concession stand and she'd sneak us a hot dog. We didn't have money. My dad worked down here in Florida, took a job with what was radiation at the time, became Harris Semiconductor, but we didn't make ends meet. My bro, if we wanted to buy candy at the store on the way home, or even at times lunch money, my brother Bill and I would collect Coke bottles and cash them in for 30, 40 cents and things like that. So the cool thing about my parents or my dad coaching the team was we always had equipment. We had the team equipment. We had bats and balls to play with.
So you were practicing all the time, I imagine, outside of practice.
Yeah, we were, but to us, it wasn't practice. You get home from school and you dump your stuff and you run back outside, and we're playing basketball in the driveway, or all the kids in the neighborhood, we head back up to the field. Or, I talked about my buddy, Mark, my brothers and I, on days that it would rain, we'd go down to the fields early and get all the water off the field. It was important to us that we wanted to play that night, and we would clean the field up and get it ready to play. And then the adults would still cancel because it rained earlier in the day. We were, I don't know, it was natural. I'd say, as far as throwing a football, we started playing flag football. My brother Bill, being a year older, was the quarterback and I was the receiver. And within a year or so, that kind of flip-flopped, because my arm was, I don't know, I could just pick up a ball and throw it naturally. I threw a football like I threw a baseball. I just could, I don't know. It was a little bigger motion, a little more wind up, wasn't as compact as a lot of, the NFL guys, the perfect form or whatever. I think I was 8 and I went out for tackle football. My skill level was excellent. I mean, catching, running, throwing, all that, but they saw my size and they were worried about keeping me on the team. And then they found out I was only 8 and you had to be 9 to play tackle. So they put me down in flag for another year. And I think that actually helped, because it was, I learned skills more than anything else, the throwing and catching part of the game and all that. And then when I was 9 years old, I played tackle, but I was like 8 pounds under the weight minimum.
Oh, wow.
I was never, it was the story of my life. I mean, even when I was 12 and I was the superstar on the team at 11 and 12, I was still light. The max weight would be like 102, and kids were losing a couple pounds to make sure that when they weighed in, they made weight. And I was still down at 80 pounds or 85 pounds, So it was the sports in general were always more important to me than the other kids. The other kids were playing a game, and I was playing to win. My dad, looking back, he pushed us. He pushed me, but I thought he was pushing me hard. And it bothered me at times, but really, when I look back, he wasn't. I mean, it was just, I thought that he was harder on me than the other kids on the team. And I'm like, why are you spending this extra time with me in the batter's box at batting practice? Let this kid that can't hit get in there and get better. So I got a little frustrated at times about that, but he did things like we were playing for a championship in Little League. And I pitched the first playoff game, and then my buddy Mark was pitching the championship game, and it ended up being a tie, and we had to go extra innings. And then I got to pitch the extra inning, the following day or 2 days later, whatever it was, we finished the game. Well, most Little League teams would show up a half hour before the game and go play. Mark and my father and about 4 or 5 of us that were coming up the bat in the next inning met down the field like an hour and a half early, took an hour of batting practice. We're dripping wet with sweat. This is in Florida, the sun.
Mm-hmm.
And I got the pitch, and it was like, I went on the mound. I struck 3 guys out in a row. I got up, got a double. Mark put one off the fence for a double. Game was over, like 2 pitches. And that's, the preparation side was there at a young age. The desire to want to do whatever it took to be ready to play and be ready to win was there that was at 12 years old, but it was there at like 9 or 10 years old.
Mm-hmm. Where do you think you got that from the most?
Probably my dad. My mom actually was very athletic. She wasn't a sports star of any kind, but she could even up into our high school years. My mom could run faster than my brothers and I.
Wow.
My dad played JV golf, and that was about it. He wasn't really an athlete, but when it came to his kids, and he realized we were interested in it, he would study up on it to teach us. I remember The Science of Hitting by Ted Williams. He had the book, and he's trying to textbook. My brother Bill became an excellent baseball player and a textbook hitter. Everything he did, my older brother, it seemed like it was a learned skill.
Mm-hmm.
For my younger brother Darren and I, everything was pretty natural. Give me the ball, let's go. I think my drive and desire came from my dad being there and pushing us a little bit, but the athleticism probably came from our mother.
Mm-hmm. So I've seen where I've had friends whose dads coached them, and then it kind of added a bit of inflammation into their relationship. But it seems as if your dad was able to push you enough, but not really harm the relationship. Is that?
Yeah, that's true. I do remember a couple specific instances where I got frustrated with it. But by the time I was 12 or 13, he was done coaching me. It wasn't like he coached me through high school. And I've seen that where the high school coach is still coaching his kids, and then the kids can't play for anyone else. They're used to being pampered, baby, given the position, be the starter. I had to go earn everything. And I think part of it, my size, kept me driven that way, that I was always trying to prove myself. I came up to the high school as a sophomore, and my brother Bill was a starting quarterback. And I thought I was going to play with the sophomores, and no one played varsity as a sophomore. You played on the sophomore team, played in some of the JV games maybe, and then juniors and seniors played on the varsity. I was down with the sophomore kids for the first day, and on the second day they moved me up to practice with the varsity, and I wound up being starting free safety. And then by week 4, I took over a quarterback, and they moved my returning starter brother, 2 years older than me, to wide receiver, and I went to quarterback. So, I never saw that stuff coming. I always had that chip of I'm trying to prove myself, and I didn't realize, I realized I had success, but I didn't realize I was a better athlete than the other guys around me. I always felt like I was trying to prove something. And, even Steve Grogan said that's why I played till I was 43, because I was still trying to prove I belong. And he's right.
So you think that's what really drove you in your career?
I think so. I think that was an underlying thing the entire time. I also remember, as a kid, I knew what it was like to have electricity turned off in the house for 3-4 days, to not have a car because the car got repossessed, to not have hot water in the house or nothing to eat in the house. I knew what that was like. And I remember thinking at a young age, maybe around 8 to 10 years old, that how the hell am I going to earn a living? At that time, that was early 70s. My dad was making probably $15,000 to $20,000 a year, which was probably an average salary at the time. And I'm like, how the hell do you make that kind of money? I don't know what I'm going to, and so I was driven with that also in the back of my mind at an early age. And I knew I was going to need a scholarship in order to go to college.
So it sounds like you had a really big appreciation for the small things in life.
Um, no doubt. I mean, you looked around. We grew up outdoors. We grew up in a neighborhood where the kids, no, not a lot of people had money, so we were all out in the street playing baseball. And if I got a new glove, it was a big deal. That was back in the day. It was kind of like the movie Sandlot, where if you had a decent baseball to throw, it was a big deal. So you made your own fun. And, there's other kids that when I got to high school are taking the class trips to Washington, D.C. and going here and doing this, or traveling, or going on real vacations with their family. You know, I, I guess I almost wasn't even aware that stuff was going on, but I was just locked into my summer baseball schedule and all that, while these other kids are taking trips to Disney World or wherever. And so anything we had was a big deal. If we got something, I remember us getting our first color TV in the early '70s. It was a day of Monday Night Football. Monday Night Football was starting, and my dad wanted to have a color TV for that. And that was a big deal. At Christmas we get 3 or 4 gifts, and they were small. A basketball, a pair of socks, or what. You get a few gifts to open, and that was it.
Wow. So, yeah, you really brought yourself up in an amazing way, it sounds like, just with your motivation to improve yourself and your surroundings and your environment and your future professional life, no matter what you were going to do.
Yeah. And, part that is a little, I don't know, frustrating for me now looking back is that everything was a competition. I played to win, and even with the guys on my team, I wanted to have the highest batting average. I wanted the most yards rushing. I wanted to be the superstar on my team or outshine. And so even the guys sometimes that were on your team, I felt like it was a competitive thing. Every aspect, even I was an honor student. I was National Honor Society. I was a Rhodes Scholar candidate at Boston College, blah, blah, blah. But that was a competition, to get the better grade than the kid sitting next to you, almost to a fall. I remember being in Calgary when I was playing up in the CFL, and guys, I forget who said it, but it was one of the offensive linemen. It's like, I did nothing but talk shop and talk football and talk. Don't you think about anything else? And I just didn't. Nothing else was important to me at the time.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting you use the word frustrating. You said your competitive spirit was a little frustrating to you. Why do you think that is?
Well, I look back and I wasn't as close. I had a real tight circle of friends, and mostly guys I played ball with, but just a handful of guys at most. And I wasn't social. I never drank or smoked, and I wasn't at parties. I wasn't, even, Boston College days. Very limited number of friends that I stayed real close to. There's a couple of guys that, that you stayed close to from high school years and from college years and all that. And I've spent the last 10 to 15 years reconnecting with a lot of people. But that's the part that not, and a lot of athletes say that, you make sacrifices. The Olympic athlete, the gymnasts that are in their early teens and did nothing but work their tail off, they miss out on relationships or friendships or whatever because they're so serious about what they're doing. So there are sacrifices that are made.
Mm-hmm. In the work that I do, I work with athletes and non-athletes, but we always focus on the ways that people are doing things. So there are basically 2 parts of us, 2 manners in which we perform. One is out of ego, which you can go down a river from there. It's needing to prove oneself or wanting fame or money, or the other part is doing things out of love. And it's possible to have success in both those manners, where I feel like love is a little more longevity. And I was thinking to myself, these athletes, football is a very ego-driven sport, and a lot of sports are. Professional sports are, obviously, but with the intensity and the collisions that come with football, there tends to be a lot more ego involved. And I was thinking to myself the other night, how can people do both? And it seems they can have ego more off the field, but when they're on the field, the love of what they do starts to take over.
Mhm.
And seeing your highlights, I kind of saw that in the way that you played.
I loved playing the game. I mean, I was at the ball field all the time because I wanted to be there. Um, I, I was driven and competitive and all that, and in the ego, no doubt about it. That was part of it. But for me, I was at the Pro Bowl. I was probably 39 years old when I went to my first Pro Bowl, or in my late 30s. And I'm at the beach, and I want guys to throw the ball around. And, all the other guys are like, we're on vacation. I'm not doing squat. I'm getting a drink. I'm laying on the sand. I'm sitting there. And I'm like, I enjoy picking up a ball and throwing it around. My high school buddies always made a road trip to at least one game somewhere, whether it was in Canada, whether it was when I was in San Diego, Buffalo. And what we would do is they'd go to the game. After the game, we'd go like to a little local pizza or wing place, and then turn around and go back to the stadium after everyone cleared out, and we'd play touch football out on the field. And we were doing that. I played for the Chargers, and we did it in Buffalo. We did it in San Diego. And when we were with the Chargers, we're out on the field. And, we're there. I mean, I just played a game against whoever. I don't know if it was Oakland or Denver. Actually, that might have been the Patriots out there. But after the game, we went and grabbed something to eat quick and got back to the stadium, and the place had cleared out. And we're out there throwing a ball around, and they're having a blast. They're in an NFL stadium, and the sprinkler system came on, and we're out on the grass, and we kept playing.
Nice.
And it's just what we did. I love, to this day, I still play competitive baseball. I just played some pickup basketball yesterday. I enjoy it.
Yeah, you can see the love you have for sports watching highlights of you play. It's really amazing. So, if you were to go back to the early days, what made you fall in love with sports so much?
I lived in Florida at that time, so we were always outdoors. And the beach was there. Guys were starting to learn to surf and all that. And my interest was playing sports. I think part of it was starting to have success made you want to do it more. I don't know why it became such a passion. Maybe it was the only, we didn't have money. We didn't have a lot to do at the house. It was a way of feeling good about myself and having a satisfaction of doing something well, or getting the kids in the neighborhood together. I really couldn't put my finger on it, other than the fact it was my only alternative.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I guess, you could have started a lawn business and gone out and started cutting lawns and landscaping and go another direction or something. But to me, that was my outlet. Mm-hmm. My outlet was, I was most comfortable when I was playing sports. I was quiet. I was shy. I think my second grade teacher didn't even know I was in her class when my mom went to parent teacher conference. She's like, really? I was, that was me. I was, even through high school and into college, until I started really playing at BC and probably got into my junior year, did I get comfortable doing interviews and talking to people. I was most relaxed when I was on the field.
Yeah, it seems like the unorganized playing time that your dad, or that you and your brothers fell into with each other, mm-hmm. really helped you flourish later on in your career, and even to this day with your baseball playing right now.
That's where your creativity, that's something I get very frustrated with the kids today, mm-hmm. is all my creativity, all my being able to think quick on my feet, and comfortable in situational football, everything else came from playing in the front yard. We would have a clock on the side. My dad had this, I don't know, it was for his dark room. He was a photographer and liked to develop his own pictures and all that stuff. But we had this timer. We'd set that thing at 5 minutes and play a 5-minute basketball game or a 5-minute football game. And, you learn to think quick and do things in a hurry and work against the clock and all that. I remember being 10 to 12 years old watching NFL games and just ripping the quarterback for not calling a timeout or head coach, for not using their timeouts correctly, things like that. And all the kids today seem to, if it's not organized with top-notch coaching, one-on-one instruction, and then they don't do it. And there's, you can be a textbook quarterback all you want. As far as throwing the football and mechanics and form and you get in the game, there's variables. Guy gets in the passing lane, you drop down sidearm and throw it around him. The drop's not going to be exactly perfect because somebody gets pushed back in your face. Or it killed me. I would get criticized on Monday because of my footwork. And I didn't always realize, I drifted about a foot to my left to find that passing lane to throw the ball through a gap and put it in this position. Or I knew I was going to go to a certain area and it made it a better angle to throw the ball. The game's not played on a chalkboard or a grease board.
Yeah, there's almost too much intellect trying to go into sports nowadays and too much control with teaching.
Yeah. A perfect example of, this is for the betterment of the game now, but a perfect example is you look at golf. You look at the swings of a Arnold Palmer or a Lee Trevino back in the 60s and 70s. And those swings, everybody had their own unique swing. They just managed what they did and learned to play the game. Then now with video and all that, everything's a cookie cutter swing. Everybody tries to be the exact maximum power, this and that. And, it just changed. Now in football, just because everybody throws the ball the same way mechanically, it's not going to happen that way on game day. That's the difference. A golf or a tennis, that perfect form every time can pay off. In football, not necessarily.
So this creative side of you, I'm a firm believer that people are born and they're completely a blank slate, and then they become programmed by their parents, by their siblings, by their social connections that they have. So this creative side of you, how do you think it was programmed into you?
I think by watching so much football on TV, and sports in general, I saw things happen. I watched a Fran Tarkenton or Roger Staubach play the game the way they played it. I loved Roger Staubach because he used his timeouts and ran the 2-minute drill better than anybody. Fran Tarkenton realized that it's an option to go backwards and scramble around. Most quarterbacks, when they scrambled, always tried to go forward through the pocket or get around the corner. He'd double back, loop back and forth, and use the field and stay behind the line of scrimmage to make a big play. And I think a lot of ideas came from watching those guys play. And then also all the Sandlot ball we played. We made our own rules. You had to. You were only playing 2-on-2, 3-on-3. You played baseball. We play 3-on-3 baseball. You close right field from center field over. I say that to kids today. They have no idea what I'm talking about. They have no idea. But, you got 4 guys, 5 guys, you could still play a game. You go out on and play 2 against 2 and one guy's all-time pitcher, or, you pitch to your own guy. And you had to be creative in order to play. We played baseball with a cup. We didn't, we'd take 2 cups, put one inside the other, ball it up, pitch it, and hit it with our hand.
Wow.
And, you just made up games or and then playing Sandlot ball all the time, you had to call your own plays, right? So you draw something up in the dirt. Let's try this or that, or you're pitching and lateral in the ball, you're throwing a backwards pass so you can throw it down. All that stuff. day one, it doesn't happen. But when you play Sandlot ball every day for 5 to 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
you start tricking each other, and you got to find ways to trick, all your buddies that have seen every little move you've done.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the part or an aspect I think that's missing a lot now, because those kids today they're in a training facility running with a vest on against resistance and working on leg strength, and the creative aspect just disappears.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like your dad put you in those environments to be creative and helped you kind of.
My dad, when I was 11 and 12 years old playing quarterback, he wasn't the head coach on the team, but he encouraged them and allowed me to call my own plays. I was calling all my own plays in Pop Warner football. And then when I was in junior high school, and my dad was not involved at all, but the head coach in my junior high he saw it in me and just said, "Hey, you got to call the plays. All the formations and plays." So I was calling all my own stuff. And then we went to high school. We called the plays from the sideline, but 2 minute, I was always in charge in 2 minutes. So, coaches saw something in me where I had an understanding I understood how to use my timeouts. I understood I loved doing that. I always felt when the game was on the field, I had the edge on the other kids.
You talked a lot about your size, and I know that was an ongoing theme during your football career. Did your parents ever talk to you about that or encourage you? Did you ever feel discouraged at a super young age where they helped you grow from that?
Not really. I remember one of my coaches, when I was 9 years old and I played tackle football the first year, I wasn't starting or anything like that. And I was one of those guys that put you in for a handful of plays and get you out, but they put me in at the end of the game. And I was out there for like the last 3 plays of the game. I had an interception and I ripped the ball out. Instead of tackling the kid, I ran up and grabbed her and just ripped the ball out, and it went to the ground. They recovered it. But then the next play, when they threw the ball, I picked one off. So I remember the coach telling me, he goes, after the game, he's like, "I was so afraid to put you out there because you're so small." You were like, I was probably 60 pounds and the weight minimum was 68. And he said, but once you got out there, they could tell I was fine. And I really, the only time I didn't think of the height as an issue for myself, I was, because I was played with older kids, the Sandlot was tougher than the Little League game or the Pop Warner football game. Because I was playing against my brother's friends that were 2 years older than me. And then I get to play my games. I'm playing against the kids my size and my age. So, yeah, they're still a little, I was undersized. But the first real time that the height and all that became an issue was when college recruiters started coming around. Then that was pointed out to me because, and Joe Paterno said it when we were in college and I had some good games against him. It's like he doesn't realize he's not supposed to be doing what he's doing. And that was true. I do remember as a sophomore being a smaller kid on the field and intercepting a pass and running down the sidelines, and I got hit by an offensive lineman from the other team that must have been 120 pounds heavier than me. And the ball went flying and I went flying, and I'm like, holy, these kids are bigger than me. But when it was it was always everybody else that thought it might be an issue, or it might, and my parents never brought that up.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder what things would have been like if they did bring it up. And I think a lot of parents do that. It's almost like they're unconsciously limiting their own child. And I think that happens a lot.
My parents, my dad had this unbelievable confidence in me, more than I had in myself. He thought I was, he would do these things, which pissed off a lot of kids around you, I'm sure. I'm the shortstop on our Little League team, and the best hitter in the league goes to bat. He makes the left fielder move into shortstop and puts me out in left field. The guy hits a deep fly ball and I catch it, and then I come back in and I play shortstop. Yeah, it just those kinds of things. Um, that my dad was all about winning. I was all about winning.
So yeah, I think that's really powerful what you just said, that your dad had an unbelievable confidence in you more so than you did yourself.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And a story that my recruiter from Boston College, a guy named Barry Gallup, story he tells all the time. I was a undersized kid, all that. I was a 1AA or an Ivy League type kid, and Boston College finally decides to offer me my only Division I scholarship. And I sign on signing day, and as Barry was leaving the house, my dad pulled him aside. He says, "You don't know what you're getting," and I didn't think that way. I thought I was lucky as hell to get a Division I scholarship in BC. And then I got there, and there's like there were 9 quarterbacks total, and these other guys are all 6'3", 6'4", big arms. Matt Ryan's uncle actually was he was the returning starter at the time.
Oh wow!
So I thought I was going to be asking to change positions and all that, and then within 4 games, I'm starting quarterback. And I just, it was weird because I was days away from asking to change positions. To go to, because I saw my buddy Gerard Pham, the guy that caught the Hail Mary pass. Gerard and I were roommates, and I knew I was more athletic than Gerard, and he's getting playing time. He's out there at wide receiver catching a ball or two, playing special teams, and I'm standing on the sideline watching, and I'm nowhere near, in my mind, nowhere near the field. I had worked myself up to number 4 quarterback, but all 3 guys ahead of me played poorly through the first few weeks, and I got an opportunity to play against Penn State. I think it was week 5. And I remember walking out on the field. It was the 4th quarter. We're down 38-0. They're the best defense in the country. They had not been scored on all year. And when they told me to warm up, I thought, you're crazy. I had never called an offensive play in the huddle. I was always running scout team. I'd never called an offensive play in the huddle. And when they told me to warm up, I still thought they weren't going to put me in the game. Then we got the ball back and they called me over. I guess, we're really doing this. And I jog out on the field, and I'm just trying to remember what the play call is, because he called, I'm not used to calling the plays in the huddle. And I just looked around the stadium and took it all. We were at Penn State, 85,000 people. And I'm thinking, I'll be able to tell my grandkids someday that I played in front of 85,000 people, because this is it. I'm going to go out. I'm going to shit the bed, and I'm going to play terribly and, get the crap kicked out of me. But at least I played. And I was 5 for 5, and we were in the end zone. The game was the same as it had always been. But going into it, I thought, this is ridiculous. You're not going to put me in the game. You run the first play, the guy's open, you throw him the ball. This guy's open, you throw him the ball. It was the same as it had always been.
Just like on the Sandlot.
Yeah, it really, no doubt. And I think the difference was, these other guys might have stronger arms. These other guys might, give you all the right answers in the meeting and all that. When I was on the game field, I was more relaxed than they are. I saw the field. Everything I saw in practice, everything I see on the Sandlot, I see when the lights are on and there's 85,000 people in the stands. And, a lot of guys don't do that. Because you put a guy 6'4" right next to me, we drop back and we throw routes versus air, wide receivers. There's no way I'm going to be more impressive than him.
Yeah, but when they're afraid to make mistakes, that's the biggest thing. But it sounds like you played with a freedom of not being afraid to make mistakes and being able to bounce back when you did make mistakes.
That's very true. I was willing to take. I didn't see him as risks, but I was willing to turn it loose and just, wheel and deal and lateral the ball down the field and stick it into tight windows and all that. And then, what happens is, especially in the NFL, you get some negative experiences. Fear gets coached into you. there were times where I played apprehensive or afraid to make a mistake, and that's when you play poorly.
Mm-hmm.
You just stop making plays. And looking back, I remember those times now and say that's why I was doing this and that's why I was doing that. I think a big part of my career was when I went up to Canada and played. I regained all that confidence and trust in my own abilities, so that when I came back to the NFL, I played with a lot more confidence.
Yeah, and from the conversation we had when I met you in Florida, you said you had more of a freedom to play and be yourself and to express yourself in Canada than you ever did in the NFL.
No doubt about it. Most of the time up there, I was calling a lot of my own plays, mostly. And at least the last 4 years I was. And if I just saw something, I didn't hesitate to take advantage of it. Even if we'd never called a play or practiced a play, I said, I'd turn to a receiver. I said, hey, they can't play it like that. He's taking away this. Just give him a double move and go. Or just, one of that stands out to me is I had a quarterback draw called, and the defense was such they were coming off the edges and they were blitzing, and we really couldn't block everyone, but it was going to hit. I really thought it was going to hit quick through the middle, and I didn't have the speed to go 70 yards for a touchdown. And it might be a little clustered initially, but if you break the line of scrimmage, it was over.
Mm-hmm.
So I turned to the back next to me, who was a faster 40 guy than I am. And I just said, hey, take it as a direct snap and just go. He's like, well, I go, just take it yourself. I'll just pretend it's the deep snap. And he jumped in front, took it, went 77 yards for
Wow.
Untouched.
Wow.
And because he could hit it quicker than I could,
mm-hmm.
once he broke the line of scrimmage, there was no one going to touch him. Now with me, if I had done that, he was a bigger kid. If there's an arm tackle or a guy that's free, he could run through that arm and go. And I wasn't going to be able. For me, it has to be clean. And I didn't know if it was going to be clean or not. But if you broke the line of scrimmage, you were gone. And that's why I wanted him to do it. And stuff like that. You just we weren't afraid to draw things up in the dirt.
It sounds like you had that early on in childhood as well, this freedom to express yourself. So what was the environment in your house growing up outside of sports?
Mom was a stay-home mom, and we were outside all the time. My mom loved going up to the beach. We were always outside. We were very loving, caring mother. Father was working during the day, but home early. And the other aspect of all that was that after games, we would talk about it, like just, with enthusiasm. When I did this, or when Mark did that, or we that was awesome when this happened or that. And that's why all the memories of all my games have been embedded. It's like just talking those things through. Now, like the other aspect of our life was, we didn't have anything else. We, just if I don't know, you get tired of eating plain pasta, or I don't know. I'd just be thankful that we had that. And there were nights we didn't have a meal on the table. So we had each other. We had athletics. I don't know, at home stuff. I was always, what's weird is I've never thought of myself as a morning person in general, but even at a young age, I remember getting up first before everybody else to get ready for school, because I wanted the hot water. If we ran out of hot water, I wanted to shower with hot water. I get up and make my own oatmeal in the morning or something. And I just did that. And so it was even a competition with my brother.
Wow. So I'd like to switch gears a little bit from your father into you being a father. You have a son, Dougie, who is autistic, and you've done a lot of work for autism and have your own nonprofit organization.
Yep.
Now, I can imagine, I've experienced this with my relationship with my son, that I went to it with these expectations of what he was going to be like and how our relationship was going to be like. The reality of it over the first couple of years was totally different than my expectations. Did you ever experience that as a father as well?
It was just so weird for me that things changed in a hurry. I think my expectations early, our daughter Alexa played soccer. I helped coach some of her soccer teams, and she was a dancer, all that stuff. Very involved, and I had this anticipation of being very involved in their lives. And Dougie, at 2 years old, was speaking in full sentences, and I had my brother Bill's boy Brett was exactly the same age as Dougie, and I'm thinking those two are probably going to wind up playing ball together. And so when Dougie was diagnosed, it was a total shift in gears. But I think our background in athletics and getting used to disappointment or losing and having to deal with those negative experiences, you learn to regroup the next day and move forward. And I think right away we decided to do the foundation, and okay, this is the cards were dealt with Dougie, and now let's move forward. And so there are no expectations anymore. It's just, it was more take each day one at a time. And when I make eye contact with Dougie, it's the same little boy that was there at 2 years old that was talking to me. And I don't know, there's such a connection as far as having to understand what he's thinking or saying just by his facial expression or what he is, his body language. Mm-hmm. The connection with Dougie now, he's 27 years old, and you still treat him like a little boy because those are the reactions you're getting, and that the reading of his body language still, or the eye contact that he makes. It's just different. I don't know how to explain it. It's really, really special when you have a moment where he shows affection, and I say it's mostly through the eye contact that stuff happens. Mm-hmm. But there are definitely those moments that are just, he only has with us because other people just would never read that in him or see it.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful to hear. Something that came to me last night when I was thinking about this interview we're going to do, or that we're doing, is that you seem to see what's there and not focus on what's not there.
I think that's accurate. And maybe it's because of sports that you just learn to accept things as they are. Especially with Dougie. I mean, you don't have outside expectation. He doesn't have we joke that, sometimes we want to take a Dougie pill and just chill out and not have any expectations on us and not have to do anything more than just be ourselves and go. Mm-hmm. With Dougie, that's exactly what it is. I mean, yeah, you're trying to get him to get the most out of life by developing some little skills in day-to-day life. But for the most part, there's no pressure, no expectations, and it's just move forward. And I guess we accepted that a long time ago. Mm-hmm. And it just, he's blown us away over the last couple of years. He learned like 4 signs. He's learned, I don't know, he does things at school repetitively over at school, mm-hmm. and they don't always transfer to home. So you go over to school and he's pushing a broom and sweeping a floor. It's like, who the heck is this kid? Or stacking dishes. So, you can't sell him short. He's still making strides every day. Mm-hmm. He helps deliver the mail. He was stacking dishes, like doing the dishes, and he was stacking the bowls and plates. And it was just blowing me away that he's putting the bowls in a pile, he's putting the plates in a pile. And you, as someone that doesn't know Dougie, would never think that's possible.
Mhm.
I think it's possible, but it was still very unexpected. And then he put one of the plates down and it was crooked. It didn't really stack right. And he went to grab the next plate or bowl. He looked back over, saw it, straightened it, and came back over.
Oh, wow.
You know, it was that stuff blows you away, or blows us away.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. So what was your experience like as a coach to Alexa in a sport that you didn't even play, it sounds like?
It was very humbling because I just did not. I wanted her to have fun. I wanted her to be competitive, but I had zero expectations. It's different. It wasn't like I could just go, hey, well, we lost. Okay, no big deal. My best coaching move ever. They must have been little 10-year-old girls soccer at the time, and they were playing a tournament, and we weren't very good. And I told the girls if they lost the first game of the tournament, and the next one, if they lose, they're knocked out. And I said, look, they had all, the big deal to them was doing their hair the same, their nails were the right color, all that, right?
Yeah.
I said, if you guys win this game, you get to paint my nails the same.
Oh, nice.
They played the best game of their life and won the game. And they were so excited. I mean, they did nothing but talk about it the entire game. And immediately after, had to paint my nails. And so that's motivation.
Yeah, that's serious motivation.
That was my best coaching move ever.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, it's nice that you were able to go in very lightly. I think that's when parents do coach their own children, that's the way it should be, Yeah. So if you were to have a couple bits of advice for parents who are raising athletes, what would they be?
Number one thing is be there for the kids. My dad he sacrificed work to be home on time to get us and take us. Be the parent that is picking up the other kids. Be the parent that is at every game. It meant so much to me to have my parents involved, not necessarily coaching. You don't have to be the coach, but to be in the stands, to talk to them after the game about, oh, what a great play you made here or there, or it was all right. You struck out, not a big deal. Just the fact you were there. So many parents look at it as a babysitting service where they can dump the kid for a few hours and not have to worry about it, or have somebody else pick them up, or the other aspect of overbearing, try to have I'd say definitely don't coach your own kid past the age of 12. Be involved. If you're involved in the Little League, great. But have your assistant coach do the coaching of your son or daughter. It might be through you. You might give the information to the other guy and because there's a resentment that can get built. There's the comfort zone of the child having their parent there all the time. All of a sudden, now they get thrust into something where the coach is a tough, hard-nosed coach, the high school level or college level, and the kid isn't used to it. And they pull back and can't handle it. Why does he hate me? Why is it? I've seen that, because they're always used to being the starting quarterback, the leadoff hitter, the shortstop, the pitcher, because their dad coached them and put them in that position. They didn't have to earn it. And all of a sudden you get put in an atmosphere where you got to learn to work hard and outcompete someone of equal ability. It gets difficult for them. So I've seen that in more than one or two kids, that they were coached very successful through high school because their parents were always involved. Their dad was a coach. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden you go to a college level and you have a coach that's in your face and demanding of you. And you've never had that before. You've never had, the tough coach.
Wow. That's awesome. Just be a parent.
Right? Yep. Be there for them. Be at the field. I love when I see that the parents are at the field and around. I do opening day at Little League here. We have a facility here that's Flutie Athletic Complex, and it's where I played Little League ball and all that. And At opening day every year, I kind of give that speech to the parents of be the one that's picking up the kids and getting to the field on time and be there in the stands to watch, even if it's to watch them strike out, be there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've got to be their number one fan, not their number one coach.
Yep.
Well, Doug, I really appreciate your time here, and I think your words are really motivating and powerful for a lot of parents. Best of luck with the band and your baseball career and everything else, your surfing career.
Yep. Appreciate that.
Yeah. So if you're looking for my takeaways from my interview with Doug Flutie, I decided to change things up compared to what I did in the first 3 interviews with athletes. So I did a separate podcast episode with just my takeaways from this episode. And of course, I go pretty deep as usual, but I feel like in order to go even deeper and give myself a little bit more time, it was best to do a separate interview. So I hope you click on to the next one and listen to what I said. Thanks for listening to this one. Much love to you and many blessings.